Alright, should be live everyone. How's everyone doing? We'll skip the intro for today, the intro music. But yeah, got a good one planned for you lot. Since the last one did so well, probably because of the way I titled it. But I just thought I've got too many titles with that guy in it. Too many titles. So I don't want to what's it called? Overdo it. I think it's not fair. I don't think YouTube like that sort of stuff either, where you keep doing videos on certain people, regardless of context. So yeah, we'll keep it. He's not going to be in the title, but he'll be in the video, no doubt. Hopefully, we should be good to go. Can't see too many issues. Did have a question from QA that was quite interesting, so I'll answer that first before we go on to the actual stream. Just bear with me 1 minute. So yeah, okay. Let me go with QA's question first. Hopefully, get some more people in the stream, and we can go on to the main crux of the video. So QA saying with 2 to 4 possible 6 million Conservative voters looking like they're staying home and then voting for another party instead of, maybe, I don't know. With Labour having issues with the voters of the left possibly voting Green or staying at home, and in a very dirty and horrible Conservative election campaign, plus laws to suppress voting and other changes, and Labour's lead in the polls, how many people do you think go out and vote in the next election? Now that's an interesting question because there's a lot of caveats he's added there. Well, not caveats, kind of a lot of points made there. So Conservative voters aren't too infused to vote for the Conservative Party or looking at another party to vote for. The Labour Party, I don't think the voters are that infused with the Labour Party and looking at another party to vote for or staying at home. A campaign that's going to turn a lot of people off. That's an interesting point. I think we've got some buffering. Okay. Let's see. A dirty and horrible campaign. Apparently, Raina called like Starmer a pint-sized loser or something like that. So yeah, it's not. I don't think it's going to go too well. I can see the Tories bringing back the Savile stuff. To be honest, Dad was a toothmaker. Mum, a toolmaker. Even we're going to hear a lot of that. My dad was a toolmaker. The voter suppression stuff as well. That's another thing. That's a bit gnarly. Yeah, don't mention the stuff going on with that guy, the former head of the DP. We're not going to talk about that. Let's not discuss that. It's an ongoing court case. If you wanted to talk about court cases, we can talk about what's his name, Lawrence Fox losing his court case regarding calling people another word for nonce, and where questions posted, the community section. So if you go on my channel, so I'll show you guys quickly. So this is my channel here. Click community tab when you go on my channel page, and there's normally a community post up. So this one, you just pick any one of them. I'll probably answer it, but pick the most recent one, and I'll try and answer your questions as long as they're good questions. So yeah, it's in the community section. I think let's have a look at the election turnout quickly. What the hell happened in 2001? Madness. But yeah, you can see it peaked 2016 referendum, 2017 68.8, so 69 we'll call it, 67.3. I think the next election or the election turnout will be lower. I think it'll be like 65. You look at 2015, probably like between. I wouldn't be surprised if between 60 and 65. I think that's a safe bet. If you look at it before, it's kind of strange, once New Labour come in. Or actually, it's unfair to blame it on New Labour. Once the 92 election hits, you can see just a massive drop-off of voters. There's probably just demographic changes. Look at 1950, 83%, almost 84% of the population voted. That's crazy. That's actually wild. This would be the one I think Attlee lost, which is tragic. I think this is the one Attlee lost in. Tragedy. But you can see it's kind of continuing. 72. But yeah, it seems like 1997 and 1992 is when, for whatever reason, it just dropped off. Like peaks at 90, 92 at 75%, which is fairly average, I'd say. And then New Labour come in, 97, 71% good, drops heavily to 60, almost 60%, goes back up a little bit. You would think post-Iraq War it'd be lower. You'd think 2005 would be lower, but no, you'd be wrong. And then it goes up, Brexit referendum hits, so 68, and then obviously the 2019 election where you had a lot of Labour voters staying home. I guess this is why this one makes sense. So I think it would be even lower. I think it would be between 60 and 65 if I was going to guess. If I was allowed that kind of margin. So yeah, if you I'd say 60 and 65. I don't know if QA's here, but QA, if you're here, or if you listen to this back, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to say 60, 63. I'll say it'll probably no. Yeah, we'll go 63. That seems like a good enough answer. What the hell? Why do I have a third page for? I'll say 63%. Because no one really likes the Tory party that much. No one really likes the Labour party that much. So we'll go from there.
No, you understand.
Labour with their crappy policies. But yeah, let's go into the crux of the video. 1918 election, 57%. A lot of the Irish election was in jail. In fact, many of the Sinn Féin candidates were in jail. Okay, that's interesting. 1918. So we're going all the way back there. Okay, 57. Shoots up to 73. So this is post-World War One. And then sort of the interwar years, it was looking good, and then it shoots up 1950. So post World War Two up to the turn of the century, really. That's where it drops off. But let's get to the crux of the debate, because I might be off tomorrow, but I do have stuff I need to do tomorrow. I'll let you guys know on Saturday how it goes, the stuff I've got going on. All right. No, I was not told that I'm being roasted.
I wasn't getting that.
I don't mess with the internet, man. There's gonna be comments roasting both of us here. They're gonna be like, "Look at this man's lighting is crap," and no one's being roasted here. So yeah, this is So I'll do a little review, because you got to learn, like, one of the comments I actually found really interesting on the original stream I did for this video. No, sorry, not the original. The original stream. Sorry, the stream I did for the No Justice verse. Different bias video, was that someone was saying, like, she had better points on paper. Basically, they were saying she had better points on paper, but they didn't understand debate tactics, and that's one of the reasons why it came off the way it did. So obviously, in a debate, you don't have to be combative, but you have to address. See, why is Bro's lighting like that? My lighting is actually a lot better now, to be fair. Although none of you guys have seen the new. Oh wait, I had it on the last Sunday roast stream I was on, but my eyes were completely shot. So yeah, don't watch that one. That one's bad. But hopefully I will be on at some point, and I will have better lights. Hopefully. But anyways, point being is, no, I guess we're doing this because probably one of the videos I did really well in. I put in a lot of work for it as well in terms of debate prep. Like, did probably about 3-4 days, had someone try and mirror Phil as well to come up with arguments he would come out with, and in the end he came out with really arguments none of us could have predicted. I'll be honest. So I thought it'd be worth, like, doing a review of debates you can use in debates. Stuff you can use in debates. How's call it that? I don't want to say this is how to win, or I'm not James O'Brien or Mehdi Hasan, how to be right, given that what's his face is wrong about a lot of stuff. So yeah, let's have a listen. So there'll be a lot of pausing and stuff. Okay, there's no roasting, there's no insults flying here. I haven't prepared insults.
Have I triggered you?
No, there's no roasting here. There's no
roasting. We can just do our own thing, Maj.
Might roast them. That's funny that he actually does know who I am, because my Maj does not appear on my thing, as you can see there. So he obviously knows who I am, and according to Aki's, he was in the chat, I think, a few days later, Phil was calling me the bloke, didn't want to say my name. Tories, you might roast some Tories, might roast Alex a bit.
I'm sure we could do that. I'm sure we'll fit that all in within this.
But, I'm not roasting anyone else.
Don't worry too much. But essentially,
I was not prepared to go in for, I'm not dropping diss tracks on people.
Got a debate to be had about whether or not we can rejoin the EU.
And the main way we're going to do this is going to be very British. We're going to have 5 minutes for each person to have a discussion. Then we'll have an open forum, which will probably last for about 15 minutes. And then we'll give each of our candidates 1 minute to discuss. We're then going to do a second question within that, which is, can we rejoin the single market? So slightly different, slight similarity, same format. 5 minutes, open forum.
It was at this point I messed up because I ran out of tea. So this is where I was real mad because I ran out of tea there.
1 minute to finish off for both of our respected YouTubers. So let's have a quick introduction from...
Would anyone say I'm a respected YouTuber? I don't know about that.
Everyone, and we'll start off with Phil. Phil, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, yes, I'm Phil. I run the YouTube channel Different Bias, discussing British politics with a fairly hefty focus on Brexit and Westminster politics.
Awesome. Big Maj?
Wow, this is just over a year old. It's crazy. I thought this was like 2 years ago. Wow, time really flies, guys. This felt a lot older than it was.
Yeah, I'm Big Maj Studio, so my channel's pretty similar in that regard. I do want to do more American stuff, but that seems like a dumpster fire on its own, which I don't want to wade into too much as a British
That is true. That is still true, by the way.
guy. They're going to be like, no, you sit down. You stay outside, mate. You stay outside.
We all saw what happened to Piers Morgan.
And I want to say this right here. You think you're a tough guy? Have me back with a boxing ring in here, and I'll wear red, white, and blue, and you can wear your Jolly Roger.
And my wonderful co-host, Max.
What the hell's a Jolly Roger?
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Max. I run the Robespierre channel, where I talk about British politics in a similar light to the others, and I mainly focus on Brexit. And Alex, finally, can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Alex. I run a YouTube channel called Political X. I'm an author, historian. So let's get going with this. We're going to start. We had Phil introduce himself, so let's go Maj first. Maj, you've got 5 minutes to tell us about your thoughts on can we rejoin the EU?
Round 1, fight.
So there's 2 different levels here. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes.
Okay, this blue stuff here, I don't know what was going on with the blue stuff. That really irritated me, but I don't know where this came about.
I think the EU question is fairly simple.
Also, let me know if the audio is an issue.
Going to be dependent on are we eligible for the criteria within the EU? So you've got the things like the Copenhagen criteria. So it would be looking at our democratic institutions, looking at our courts, anti-corruption rules, all of that kind of stuff. Which, if we look at the Copenhagen criteria now, we'd probably fail that given all the Russian money floating around the UK, our really dodgy procurement laws, the fact that the court system, despite it being fairly strong, has had issues.
It's not an issue
with the Tories kind of insinuating that they might go to a US courts-based system, and the courts being a bit iffy on some of the decisions they've made regarding deportations to Rwanda, for example.
How is that a year on? It's still a thing, the Rwanda thing. But also, yeah, I kind of misspoke a little bit. The US court-style system where the politicians pick the judges.
So those are the sorts of things that the EU are going to look at. So if we can get candidacy status, which means like the EU will say, you know, we're going to look at your case. You've got to close, I think it's 24 chapters, I'm going to say, of different aspects of EU law, amongst other things. And so, yeah, it's possible the UK could rejoin the EU.
I do have a thing for that now to block out light, so I should be good for that. Yeah, you can see behind me, actually, the light is pretty bright.
It just depends on that aspect of it. Are we eligible? Do we fit into the criteria? And then you've got the political aspect of it, which is a lot more dicey because the EU could just say, "Oh yeah, we like you, but you're not in the club, mate. You know, we don't want you back in, or we don't want you in." So the French could do that, and given the fact that the EU want to bring back clearinghouses, something I want to talk about later, but they want to bring back certain financial things back to the EU. You know,
that's something they are still struggling with a year on as well. It's kind of crazy how like stuff that kind of mentioned here is still relevant.
Want to bring back euro clearing back into the EU. There was a court case about it in 2015. The UK won because we were a member of the EU, and so that was a big L for the Commission, I think, or whoever brought up the case. But the point being is it might be very difficult given the state of the UK now and how long it will take to clear up the mess, along with the fact that it takes a long time to build up goodwill, you know, and that's something the UK I think has struggled with historically, given our reputation on the world stage and the nonsense we've done over the protocol. There's that aspect. Can we be trusted as a member? You know, because the EU are doing fine.
Which again, you know, I think Tom Toggen's hat was talking about scrapping the protocol recently. So again, yeah,
fine. They're doing fine without us. You know, dealing with Russia, their sanctions have been far more effective than ours. And I think a question would arise. You know, would we have hampered EU sanctions against certain Russian oligarchs, given the amount of money that's flowing around the UK right now. We are the laundromat of Europe. So these are the things that will get looked at potentially, especially with a lot more scrutiny, I think, if we did apply to rejoin. But, given the UK large market economy, it depends how we look 10 to 15 years, because, we are capped by Brexit now. That's something Labour are concerned about. If you look at the secret meeting that happened between Gove and Lammy and the rest, I think...
nothing really happened with that, so...
Labour understand there's a cap, because it doesn't matter if they revive manufacturing. At the end of the day, who are you going to sell it to? That's the key question. And so the UK needs stability. It will need a period of stability where we don't look like a basket case. And I think if the Conservative Party accept that we have to be a member of the EU, like there's no other way about it, then I think things in the EU would change. But there would have to be tremendous goodwill within the UK. Would have to accept things like freedom of movement, absolutely. That's something where, you had the idea of the proper Europeans, the proper ones, the British ones, maybe French, Germans, etc., versus, Romanians and Bulgarians, which was something Farage weaponized. So we're going to have to accept freedom of movement and other things, which will be very difficult, I think. And these are the things that you will look at, because member states are generally treated equal. Some are treated more equally than others. But I'd say, given the different sizes of economies within the EU, it's a fair-ish system. There are still issues, of course. But I think absolutely we could rejoin. The question is, are we going to fit the criteria, and is the political will going to be there? Because, like I said, they're looking at taking financial services away from the UK and other things. So, and, the EU supply chain have rerouted outside of the UK. So the question is it worth it to them politically? All of the nightmare the negotiations it's going to come with. That's the key question. So it's a twofold question of, are we eligible, and will the politics allow it? Because I can imagine, any French president would say, no, political.
Oh, I love it. I didn't even notice this first time around. Look at that. That's brilliant.
The question is, are we going to fit
people say they get annoyed by Alex's editing, right? I love this. This is great.
Criteria, and is the political will going to be there? Because, like I said, they're looking at taking financial services away from the UK and other things. So, and, the EU supply chain have rerouted outside of the UK. So the question is it worth it to them politically? All of the nightmare the negotiations it's going to come with. That's the key question. So it's a twofold question. Are we eligible, and will the politics allow it? Because I can imagine, any French president would say no.
I didn't notice he did this. This is great. I love it.
Political, classic de Gaulle, and just say no. And that's the thing he's most known for, saying no to us. I think in England.
I think de Gaulle said no to us 2 times or 3 times. So that's actually accurate. Law accurate.
Not trying to lead the French rebellion against the Nazis. He's more known for saying no to us. I think more famously in England, which is unfortunate.
He does have an airport though.
Yeah, that's why I say. I don't know. How am I doing for time?
Twice.
Very good.
Oh, you're great. That's it. 5 minutes.
Oh, mate, look at that, mate.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I felt like I spoke forever, like just listening back to it. It did not feel like I spoke 5 minutes. It felt like I spoke for 15. That's crazy.
You don't miss.
Wonderful. Phil, your turn.
That's my backup drink there, my juice.
Yeah, so
Bill?
I don't know what sort of a debate it's going to be. I'm not disagreeing with any of those points at all. If we were...
So I wonder, with him saying that, I wonder what they said to him, or I wonder what he thought what my channel was about. That's one of the things that kind of concerned me when he said that.
Join that. If the scales had fallen off everyone's eyes and the British public was demanding
So you
about
can see here, I'm making notes.
politicians, we want to rejoin now. But that's not what it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of incremental stages that will get us ready for acceptance. And there are our interests, whether or not we wanted to go back to the EU. Whether or not we wanted to go back, they're in our interests. But I will give you 2 massive reasons why it absolutely is in the EU's interest. There's a lot of focus on the fact that the EU hasn't suffered horrendously from losing the UK. But consider, first of all, why the EU was ever formed. In various guises, it was a peace project. And ever
De
since...
Gaulle's mother's family was McCartons from County Down in Northern Ireland. Okay. How are you doing the notes? I've listened to some debate lessons where they talk about note-taking or flowing. Note-taking, you just try and pick out the key words that they're saying. So you pick out, like, if, for example, if he talks about... okay, I'll tell you how I'll do it here. I've still got that notepad somewhere, but I don't know where I've put it.
What happened was there were 2 periods in the 20th century when the rest of Europe weren't best pleased with Germany. Now, after the first little period, the reaction was a bit of cold shoulder, treat them very badly. That didn't work out very well. So then the second time they went, right, okay, well, completely different idea. What about this, lads? What we'll do is we'll form a union around them. And that would...
So the cold shoulder to Germany, that didn't happen really with the Weimar Republic. I think, is that what he's talking about here? 1 second, sorry. See, like when you're live in debate, there's stuff you don't pick up on. When you watch it back, at least it gives you a shot.
That didn't work out very well.
I see.
So there was a bit of cold shoulder in Germany. Now, after the first, when the rest of Europe weren't best pleased with Germany. Now, after the first little period, the reaction was a bit of cold shoulder, treat them very badly.
He's talking about post World War One, because that didn't happen. Like, I don't think there was a cold shoulder towards Germany post World War One. You know, you had the Young and Dawes plan, I think it was, where America invested. Well, okay, fair enough, it's the Americans, but I don't think Europe showed Germany the cold shoulder. Not really. It was only when Germany failed to make repayments. You had the French invasion of the Ruhr. I'm gonna say the RUHR. You had the invasion of the Ruhr. You had hyperinflation in Germany. But eventually, I think that was resolved. So this argument of this argument that Europe showed Germany the cold shoulders isn't true. Can we make an FOI request for your notes? Just asking for a friend. I'd have to find that notepad, I'll be honest, and I don't know where I've put it. But if I ever find it, I will tell you the notes that I made during the debate. And I stopped doing it halfway through. How many times am I going to pull this face? I will try and find it, I promise, at some point, when I clear up my area. So maybe never.
That didn't work out very well. So then the second time they went, right, okay, well, completely different idea. What about this, lads? What we'll do is we'll form a union around them. And that works superbly. And ever since then, we have not had any war.
So this, again, like, this argument of Europe showed Germany the cold shoulder is not true. Especially since Britain... The Treaty of Versailles, okay. It was the Treaty of Versailles. The French wanted it as harsh as possible so Germany could never come back in as a major power. Britain didn't want it to be as harsh, from what I remember, because they saw Germany as a potential bloc against the communists in Russia. So the argument he's making here is, I don't think that's historically accurate at all.
Or between the major powers of Europe.
Or it's extremely revisionist.
Indeed, any powers of Europe that were part of this union. That is unprecedented in history. So the UK outside of the EU is a security issue for Europe. Because although no one at the moment seriously thinks we're going to declare war with France, despite what the Daily Mail keeps saying, nonetheless, at the moment, who are we most like in Europe? Only Belarus. Now,
I don't understand how we're like Belarus, I'll be honest. Like, Belarus are, people say it's a vassal state of Russia. That seems to be mostly the case. It does what Russia wants. I don't see how we're like Belarus. If anything, we're more like maybe a pre-sanctioned Russia in Europe, where we have extreme wealth but extreme poverty as well. So I'm not seeing the Belarus thing. And this is where I was like, what?
Imagine Belarus. Imagine that we are frozen out of the EU, that we realise we need to join at least the single market or whatever. We need to have a much closer relationship, which is now even government policy. And we're frozen out, the de Gaulle none, right? But we're a large country, we're a powerful country, so we then...
So how are we like Belarus then?
Say, well, we need to make our own way now in opposition to the EU.
Yeah, it's about trade. It wasn't really making a block around Germany. It was more like just countries that trade together and less like to fight each other. That was the idea behind it.
So we're like Belarus. Only we're a Belarus with the joint largest military in Europe.
So we're more like Russia then, I guess.
That is not in the interests of European security at all. In fact, the EU, one of the pieces of, when let's be honest, probably going to be Labour, formed the government that negotiates the trade and cooperation agreement, you are going to have Labour wanting to form much closer.
Now, that is an argument, imagination scene, that I didn't think of. So you might have me there. I'm not going to lie.
And you could argue, well, where's our leverage with the EU? Where is our leverage? The leverage is the security deal that the EU wanted. That's what we bring to the table. Trade-wise, we don't have much leverage because we are not applying proper import controls to EU goods. There's no standards control.
Key part of security when it splits off the what? The UK key part of the Five Eyes security agreements, and that splits off into Nine Eyes and 14 Eyes agreements, which most of the EU are parts. Okay, with the security agreement as well, like the UK's military is really bad. It's really really bad at the moment. We would not be a near pure adversary. Like we are playing a support role at best. The Tories have talked about pushing our spending to 2.5% for defence, but the main problem is procurement and the way the MOD is run, I think.
Controls, and that is our primary motivation for at least wanting to rejoin the single market. We don't have standards controls. It is going to blow up in our face at some point. And
that is true. There is stuff kicking off about that. So that is true. The leverage the UK would have is not the prestige. It's also the prestige that the EU would get from you rejoining. That is true. That's one of the reasons they wanted us. But that prestige, I think, is gone. To be honest.
We have no way of putting them in place without strangling suppliers. I was saying to my partner again, who's moaning about the fact the shopping arrived on Friday and it's all out of date already. A week's worth of shop, it's all gone. And
this is something I've still not heard of, but I have heard of really bad substitutions.
Fresh food's knackered. Unless you go to somewhere more expensive like a Cargo.
I don't think a supermarket can sell you out of date goods like that. I'll be honest.
We sometimes do. It don't last more than a couple of days if you're lucky. Some stuff's come in. The sell by date, same day. It's come at 6 o'clock in the evening. Well, this clearly is...
Yeah, out of date as in like the goods, they're past sell by date.
It's our tea. What we're supposed to do with this. So there is a massive imperative for us to at least...
I'm not going to flex here, but like, I don't know how I was paying attention to all this, I'll be honest. It doesn't look like I am.
Rejoin the single market.
Is this... I wonder if this is the impression people get of me, because I'm not, I don't know, it doesn't look like I'm paying attention.
But the leverage from us comes from the fact that we have the joint largest military. Other countries in Europe are now alive to the threat to security in Europe, but they don't want to spend much on defence, whereas the UK, although it's cutting back at the moment under the Tories, tends to be quite militaristic. So... that is...
And it's not just about defence spending, it's about like where you spend the money. Still taking notes? I think so, yeah.
A huge... From our point of view, we're going to see that our standard of living is not going to get...
Pulling faces here, which is a really bad habit of mine.
...back up to pre-EU levels until we start to...
Enjoying my drink, though. I can tell that. I think I'm having the same drink now as I was back then. As in the same brand and flavour.
From the point of view of the EU, what they don't want is Belarus on their northern border as well.
Belarus is literally on the border. Okay, no, on their northern border as well. Okay, like again, like Belarus is not a threat. It take turns. So I've already spoken. I spoke for the first 5. He speaks for the next 5.
Massive military that wants to find alliances, wants to find ways to maintain an economy, and is frozen out of Europe. That just makes no sense.
I think here I'm trying to think of a response.
But all of this is going to take time. There are issues we have to address. We're not ready right now to rejoin.
Iron Brew don't make a dilute. If you get them to make a dilute, I'll be there no matter what.
But nor is the public ready to rejoin. And I actually think, although the normal process is to apply to join the EU and then the other bits come as part of that process, I actually think we're going to take baby steps towards it.
Mango juice is pretty good, but I'm a guava man.
And I think what is certain is closer alignment and security deal next term, because Labour have promised that, and the Conservatives now are coming to that idea anyway.
With the alignment deal, I don't know what Labour are going for, because they've said they've ruled out dynamic alignment. So with the veterinary agreement, I don't know if it will happen, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that.
And I think
it will open up towards the end. It will. I promise you that it will open up towards the end.
I think we will.
This half is structured debate. The other one is kind of unstructured debate. You'll see it.
When it comes to the single market and customs union, which I know you want to talk about separately, I think those steps will come first. I think we will try things. But that's how I see it going. Long-term project.
Brilliant. That was 5 minutes. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Right. Open forum. We'll put on a timer. I won't give between 10 and 15 minutes. Just to let the conversation flow between both of you. I think you both put interesting statements forward. You both brought up slightly different issues with it, which is quite interesting as to what could either hold us back or get us in. Max, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'd like to open it up. I think Phil said something very interesting about the security issue and how that could be used as leverage, and I'd like to hear what Big Maj has to say about that. Well, also some of the things that that Phil has to say in response to. I know you said at the beginning you agree with pretty much everything that Big Maj has to say. He's painting more of a negative image, if I'm understanding correctly. Of,
Are you calling me a hater? Is that what you say? You're saying I've got haterade in this mug? Is that what you say? I'm downplaying this country. Am I the problem with this country?
He's slightly more pessimistic, I think, or maybe you disagree with that.
I mean, if you give me something to be optimistic about, sure. I'm not going to go chanting around, Man United are going to win the league. Yeah,
And we're still not going to win the league because my team is washed. Trash. My team is trash.
Behind I'm just cautiously pessimistic. I guess that's how I define myself. Of look at the reality of the situation and you're like, yeah, that looks a bit shit. I'm not going to be happy about it.
This is back when they allowed cursing on this.
It rather than me saying, yeah, it's going to be great, don't worry, it's going to be fine. I'm like, no, that's not how life works.
So, Maj, do you have a response to what Phil has said?
Yeah. I think using the security argument, I think we can get security arrangements with the EU, but arguing we're going to be like a Belarus would be that's a really dark road that the UK would have to go down for that to happen. That would be kind of like an almost fascist state, like a dictatorship. I think I hope that doesn't happen. Genuinely, that's some dark shit right there. But I don't,
because Lukashenko is effectively a dictator. So like for us to become like a Belarus, I mean, it's cursing because of YouTube's monetization rules, I think, which I don't blame them for. With the Belarus argument, it makes no sense. It's weird. To be fair, I don't curse on my thing either, so
will happen. At least I hope so. This Johnson government is the closest we've come to anything, or I guess anything we've come to anyway.
Didn't they? The legislation they put in place to remove those rights was that Johnson administration thinking that, or whatever he doesn't think anything. Let's be honest, he just thinks I want to be king of the world, like he was when he was a kid.
Whenever anyone asked him what he wanted to be, he would answer world king.
But his advisors were telling him this is the route we have to go down, because they know that Brexit's damaging to us. They're not just going to want us to just wither and die. So they were recognising that they were going to have to put in measures to control the population, to control dissent, because there is going to be dissent.
But do you think...
And with those anti-protest laws, Labour won't get rid of them, or they haven't said explicitly they won't, but they keep saying they're not going to have enough time to, so that's going to be fun.
Do you think it's more likely likely that the UK, if we go down this route, do you think there's more chance of us kind of rebelling against a fascist government in that case, rather than us accepting a fascist leader? I know we're shit at protesting in this country, but let's not forget we did have a civil war in this country, and we didn't go down the French route of beheading the monarchy and getting rid of them, but it did happen in this country a long time ago. But
we did behead monarchists. Yeah, I was wrong about that technically, but it was a different period of time. Like the two weren't linked.
Behead a king.
King of England, you have been found guilty of high treason against the good people of this nation.
Yeah, no, you can't you can't be mad at people for being tribally loyal when he is tribally loyal. We already, like Belarus, only 2 countries using first past the post. What?
Represented in Parliament, by whose authority this court does sit in judgment upon you. Upon this charge, and that
in a governorship, we had a parliament, it didn't really work. Then we had
this stuff's not too important. Sorry, Alex.
so Cromwell dies.
Theory whether we had one at all. It wasn't a popular uprising. It was Cromwell.
It wouldn't have to be
It was a rich guy's army against another rich guy's army.
It wouldn't have to be a popular uprising, though. You just need like a decent amount of people to be upset and be frustrated with the country. Because I think there's more chance of us kind of rebelling against.
See, this stuff's not too important, to be fair.
By something completely
I was trying to combat the Belarus point, but I think it kind of got away from me a little bit, because it was, like I said, I wasn't expecting him to come out with such a weird argument regarding saying would be like Belarus and would become like a fascist state almost, or we could fall down that route. Yeah, it's kind of it really caught me off guard there, I think, and that's one of the things you got to watch out for in debates. Is stuff that'll catch you off guard, but you got to really come up with something on the fly to combat it. Or if you're slick, you can try and avoid it. But the problem is if they bring it up again, you look like you've dodged the point. So that's one of the things you've got to be wary of.
Now, that is what we've got here in this country.
Yep.
Now, you could argue, and I'm much more optimistic now, because you can definitely argue that people are not, because I thought, when COVID hit and they were hiding behind COVID, and I just thought, shit, they've now got something to muddy the waters with. And of course it works on some people, but it hasn't worked on as many people as you think, because, regret has increased, support for remaining out has dropped. Obviously, it doesn't matter about.
He's saying it's not in the EU's interest for the UK to become like a Belarus, so they would want to bring us back into the fold so we don't fall down that path. That was the crux of his argument, I think.
Popular opinion matters about the few 100,000 actually swing elections, but so I'm much more optimistic now that. But at the same time, the legislation that is removing our rights is still passing through Parliament, and the only thing that's going to stop
it did pass Parliament.
It, our only check against it is Tory MPs waking up and going, "Hang on, this is too far." And if that doesn't happen, the people aren't going to stop it. What happened in 2021? There was a bit of a public backlash against the government who weren't going to deal with all the shit being pumped into the rivers. Then what happened? Government, we'll put some stuff in. Then the Owen Paterson scandal broke. People were distracted by that, and then they just sneaked it through Parliament anyway. Now we've got a load of shit being dumped into the rivers. No one's outraged about that. And that's the sort of thing that pisses off Tory voters in the heartlands.
Yeah.
No protests. They're not even protesting in their own local party meetings. They're just going, terrible state of affairs, terrible state of affairs. Do you want the fish tonight? No, I won't have the fish tonight.
That's one of the issues with trying to rejoin the EU, though, because if we're in this kind of state where we don't have a written constitution and we can pass legislation like that, they're not going to want us.
This is where I flip it back, I think. As part of the EU, that's what's going to happen. That's one of the reasons why they haven't admitted a country like Turkey, is because their democracy is just not up to scratch. So why would they accept the UK in such a state where we're heading down a fascistic route? Like, they're not going to accept us as a member.
I get your point on Turkey, and I also get your point on the here and now. But what I'm also saying is, there are going.
Nah, it's from last year. I did a debate review for No Justice's it's fairly recent debate with Phil, and then I thought I'd do one for me, just kind of discuss I think where I did well, where I didn't do well, because in this debate I think I don't think it'd be tough to argue I lost. That's all I'm going to say. Especially when I start cooking in the second half.
There are going to be reforms because we need them, and that there is going to be political consensus for them. Quite apart from, realistically, we're certainly not even going to talk about rejoining the EU for another 3 years. And that's best case scenario. So your best case scenario is that for the election following the next one, say 2028, that there's genuine talk about maybe. See, for me, I always think the customs union should be a first easy step, but I can't deny the fact that one country has a customs union with the EU but not access to the single market, and several countries have entry to the single market but not customs union. So I can also see, but as you were mentioning before, the freedom of movement is going to rankle a lot of the racists and xenophobes maybe for some time to come. But I also still think that for a lot of people, they will get outraged at stupid things. But when they can't afford to heat their homes in the winter, and when they can't afford to eat every day, and when they're having to go round the corner for the cheap meat, which is actually poisoning them because we don't have standards controls maintaining a minimum standard on these things, I think at that point, ordinary people's ideology sort of goes out the window a bit.
Well, we've had a period of time where people couldn't afford to heat their homes. People really couldn't afford to eat because there was the whole debate between heating and eating, and some people couldn't even do either. And the cheap meats thing I can't really address because I don't know if anyone's actually done that. But we've had stories of that kind of dodgy meat being imported. I don't think people's opinions have changed that much.
want is the government that's going to, help.
It's something Grace Blakely talked about actually with the context of TikTok, but I think people who aren't on the internet as much, or kind of in certain forums, they kind of internalize their failure, where they think it's themselves that are the fault, rather than look at kind of society as a failure. Like if you talk to lots of people and they're all struggling in life, you kind of get the idea that it's not your fault, it's something else. Whereas if you internalize failure, if you internalize like, oh, you're poor because you're stupid or you don't work hard enough, if you internalize that, then you don't see it's the system that's at fault. So I don't think what he's saying here is actually true. So I don't think it's really changed people's ideas that much, especially like, I mean, we had the cost of living crisis here was not great, and I don't think people's views have changed that much, I'll be honest.
Help them feed and clothe their families. And the hard Brexit we have is a real threat to people's living standards. And people are starting to see it, and you are getting some people trying to I just look at this, even the government are now saying, yes, Brexit has damaged our economy. They've just come out and said it yesterday. I mean, that's quite something.
It's a bit weird, he doesn't make coherent points. They all kind of like just kind of scatterbrain a little bit.
Quite shocking,
and
isn't it?
And you think this is 25 months after leaving the single market and customs union, and there's maybe another 20 months before the next election, and how much further?
20 months. Let's see, 20 months. Yeah, he's not wrong actually. That's yeah.
And then you think, with a much more. I know, Labour aren't being completely honest about Brexit, but it's not going to have as many constraints. It's not going to have to, for example, appease little factions in the parliamentary party.
Evidently, they're still trying to appease the red wall. So
it's purely about trying to stay in line with voters. That's their only constraint. So they can talk much more positively about the benefits of closer harmony with the EU, and it's really like a direction. People will see the last 6 years of government policy being moving away from the EU. Well, that's hurt us. Then they'll see a few years of moving towards the EU. Well, things are getting better.
I genuinely don't think that's true at all. You've missed Belarus, yeah, you missed it. Like the idea that people put two and two together, I wouldn't be so sure about that, I'll be honest.
And
because if we move closer to the EU and people's lives get better, Labour will say it's down to them. They made people's lives better. Because why would you give the credit away? It doesn't make sense.
Easy to see. Well, if we move closer, will they get better still? Oh yeah. And I just think there's a real chance for that to happen. I think it would help if people who want to make that argument can make it in a more organised way to people, to ordinary voters. It's the easy way to harangue politicians about it, and I think they should be harangued. That's what they're there for. But I think ultimately they move when voters move, when the key voters move.
I think one of the issues is with Labour MPs, I think there is a slight faction, because you had Lisa Nandy talking about how EU kind of doctors and nurses have taken away opportunities from her constituents. So I think there is still this kind of idea that...
I remember that, I covered that as one of the stupidest things I think I've heard a Labour MP say. And they say a lot of stupid things.
Citizens from the EU are taking away opportunities from British people, and that exists even within the Labour Party and kind of their voter basis. So I think those Labour MPs are terrified they'll lose their seats or lose support in those seats where they have heavy Remain voters. So I think there's still kind of fears within that's in the front bench. There are still fears within with Labour MPs about freedom of movement, and if you can't convince them about the benefits of freedom of movement, then I think you're going to struggle to convince MPs, because it's down to politicians at the end of the day to convince people. Yeah. It's not the other way around. And so if Lisa Nandy's out there saying, people from the EU have taken opportunities from my constituents, you took everything they worked for, motherfucker, it's not gonna...
That's some Nate Diaz. That's some Nate Diaz right there.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Some Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz for you there, but that's it's not going to work out. It doesn't. You have a lot to do to convince people just on the benefits of freedom of movement, and it's just not. That's not happening. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's where the difficulty is, especially when...
And it's still not happening now, even though we have a massive labour shortage in this country. Labour are saying they don't want, with wherever that deal was around younger. Youth mobility scheme, right? Labour are against it. They said, we don't want no cheap fix or some nonsense. So this point I made a year ago still stands to this day. I need to get that one.
You're going to have people like Nigel Farage, or maybe a new Farage type, we had Bill O'Reilly, which we thought we were unlucky with, and then we got Tucker Carlson. You're like, fucking hell, can you give us a break, please? So we're like, look at the EU candidacy list. You've got Turkey, you've got Serbia, you've got North Macedonia, you have so many other countries, and they're going to be all here. Everyone from Serbia or everyone from these countries is going to be here by tea time. You're going to have no houses and all that nonsense, just like he pulled back against Nick Clegg. And you're going to have a decent
freedom of movement is a red line.
Amount of people who are going to fear that stuff. I know we're going through demographic changes. I know that younger people are less conservative. Shouts out to my generation for actually, not falling for this nonsense.
There is something interesting to bring up with all of those points. One is Schengen and whether or not we'd be in it or out of it. And Ireland is not in Schengen, so that would have some restrictions. I'm not saying complete, but it would. But then Cameron did renegotiate part of those deals as well to include about people coming over to the EU, and it does say within the EU stipulation to have a job within a set period of time.
And that was always the rules. If you go to Belgium and pull that kind of stuff, they will say no.
In the EU.
No, that wasn't a thing.
Now, it was really interesting as well because Nigel Farage got pulled up on this and denied all knowledge. But the irony was, he was like, "Oh, I was in Belgium. I never heard of any of this." And there was literally a documentary at the same time he was saying that coming out, I think on the BBC, talking about how Belgium had the ability to find people and remove them from Belgium.
Which is something the BBC didn't actually talk about during the referendum as well, I noticed. Which is tragic.
If they weren't within work within a set period of time, or they'd been out of work for a set period of time. So those things exist. If you want to implement them, then you've got a bigger argument about business versus the population. Because business obviously wants labour from across the EU. Local populations, for example, it would appear Boston, aren't particularly keen on these issues, and we can still see that with some of the results. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
I just want to say about Schengen. Yeah, I just want to say about Schengen, I don't see Schengen as a problem because Ireland is not a member of Schengen, and Ireland and Britain have the common travel area, so that sort of covers them. It allows Ireland to be exempt. Well, Ireland doesn't have to join Schengen, so if Britain joined Schengen, then Ireland would have to join it. But that's a sort of opt-out in a sense.
I think one of the reasons why Ireland didn't join Schengen was because of Britain. So I think that they might, they might actually get something out of Schengen. There's no real benefit if there's so much trade and there's so much flow of people.
Yeah, I like the video, guys. If you haven't. Phil, what?
Between Great Britain and Ireland, so there was no benefit really of joining.
I can't lie, the non-mustache look is pretty solid. I don't know if I should go back to it.
But I don't see Schengen as being a requirement.
I was just going to say, if we go back to kind of the argument here of, if we make the argument, if you don't let us into the EU, we're going to become like a fascist state, or we're going to, we've got a military here, we're ready to make a move. I don't think that's going to go down with the EU, especially when we realise that we would get lit up. Like the British military, according to military experts, we're 10 years behind having like a functioning military. And
it's still pretty bad. We might get pieced up by Poland. Poland are packing heat. Poland are packing. They're looking. I do look pretty young here, but Poland are looking pretty tanky at the moment. That's all I'm going to say. They got a big boy military. So us versus a near pure adversary, it would not go well.
French Navy are going to be into the English Channel real quick. So I think arguing like we're a security risk. You have to let us into the club, otherwise bad shit's going to happen to you guys.
It's not an argument. It's not an argument we make. This would be the argument within the EU. The EU, for example, you're going to see this with Ukraine. Not right now because Ukraine is in no fit states to be an accession member. You're going to see a lot of politicians in Europe really wanting Ukraine to go through the stages because Ukraine represents a serious security threat in Europe. At the moment, they've got a very...
I'm not going to lie, I don't know how Ukraine represents a serious security threat in Europe. I can see how Russia does because of all the money and stuff like that, but I don't see how Ukraine does it.
EU government, you cannot guarantee that lasts. At the end of the day, they know it's like it'll be a European version of Afghanistan. You need to support. They'll need to support Ukraine, and access to the single market will be part of it.
and we're going to have to end there. So I'm going to give you all 1 minute to give your final speeches over. I believe.
Yeah, European Afghanistan. Like what? This I mean. Like there's stuff you don't pick up like when you're doing it live. That's why I'm not too. I wasn't too mean the other day because there's a lot here I haven't picked up on as well. Like because he's gish galloping a lot. He's gish galloping a lot where he's talking about Ukraine being like Afghanistan. Like what? What's that about?
Started off with Maj, so I'm going to do the closing statement with Maj first. You've got 1 minute.
Sure. I think it all depends on what the will is within the EU. You got the Copenhagen criteria. The EU have set rules that we're going to have to abide by. So that's there. You can Google that. That's fine. It's all about next will be the political dilemma of do we let in the UK? Are they stable? Are they going to be a risk? Especially with not just Russian.
It's not Jish. It's not Jish. Get lost. Oh my day! All right, we're doing this then. How to pronounce Gish? All right. Blah. I can't. Oh, okay. I can see what the mistake I've made here. No, we're doing this now. How to pronounce? Can I get? Is there no Google? All right, let's do this way. Google text. Well, I've derailed this whole stream for this. I best not be wrong. I'm literally just. Why am I having to go through? Oh my god! Give me text to speech, man. Sorry, guys. It's just I'm tilted. I just want to put a. Oh my god! What? A capture code? Why do I need that? Whoops.
Gish Gallop.
Yeah, Gish Gallop, see?
Gish Gallop.
Yeah. No, I've not mispronounced it. I swear, stupid ass. Yeah, I think Killer is being a troublemaker. You guys, yeah,
That's right. Don't blame yourself. Blame me.
The people are saying, derailing the stream. Don't blame yourselves, guys. Blame me for it. Honestly. Will Phil do a 1-to-1 with David McGuinness? No chance. No chance. I don't see that happening.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
I don't think he's going to do any debates with I don't think he's going to do any debates with anyone about Scottish independence. So Davey said no. Why would Davey say no to that? That's interesting. Why would he say no?
I fail to see the logic here.
Why would he say no? He'd pretend he couldn't understand. Oh, probably. No point. I see utility in it. I don't know.
Stinks, doesn't it?
Oh, I see. That's that's not great. That is. I can't respect that. I don't think Ruth. Sorry, going back to your question. Actually, you dropped a super chat, and I should give you put some respect on your name. I don't think Phil would do it, to be honest. So yeah.
Money, but it could be Arab money, it could be Chinese money, it could be American money. Any country, we're open to corruption. We're open for business if you want to send donations. But
I too am open to donations. So just like Ruth, you can put in a super chat, or you can become a member. The membership button is there. The join button is there somewhere. So I too am open for donations, just like my government. Off to the bed, seeing it so late. Yeah, it's pretty late.
Point being,
but I'm not at work tomorrow, so I'm allowed to stay up.
point being is that the EU are going to look at these things, and I think that yes, the UK could be a security concern depending on how bad our decline is and who kind of takes the mantle. If we get like a Mussolini type character saying, "Oh, it's all the fault of the EU," we're going to go fight them next, or it's all the fault of someone else, because it always is. It never is your fault; it's someone else's fault. Words to live by. So I think that would be the main issues in terms of rejoining the EU. The UK aren't ready. I think we'd need a written constitution and we'd need stronger courts in order to enforce that constitution. And my time is over.
Nice work. Phil, you ready?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, a lot, as I said before, a lot of the things that we need to deal with would be dealt with anyway. We are, until we want to, as a country, and until we're really determined to rejoin, there is not going to be an argument for it. We have to want to rejoin, by which point we won't have a government that blames the EU for everything, because we won't stand for it. We will have to sign up to the EU's anti-tax avoidance directives. That deals with...
I think we've already signed up to it. I think we have, because I don't think we left quick enough.
A lot of the London grad issues, if indeed the next Labour government don't decide. It's a thorny issue. I'm not going to, I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of people in the know going, "This is a right can of worms you're going to be kicking over here," but it's going to need to be dealt with anyway. So a lot of these issues have to be dealt with. Politically, it has to be settled. The EU have been clear about this. If it's not obvious, you cannot have any party coming to government that would derail the whole process.
Brilliant.
Very
Thank
good.
you both.
I'm not sure. Did the UK actually sign up to it? The EU's tax avoidance directive. If you guys know, let me know, because I couldn't find anything on Google about it. I'll be honest. Oh wait, does the anti-tax directive, does that apply? Unlike some member states, the UK was already implemented rules covering all 5 areas required by ATAD, which I'm assuming is the the anti-tax avoidance directive. So the UK was already did it. I know he won't. He's his own bubble, but to be fair to Phil, actually, he did debate me. He didn't need to do that. He did debate NJ. He didn't have to do that. So I think he's less in the bubble. I think him and Bowler Hatman. It's bad. It's bad, guys. When I'm praising Bowler Hatman, it's bad. I don't have the right soundboard for this, but I can tell you, this is the guy who Bowler Hatman thinks he is. To be fair to Bowler Hatman, right? He did debate No Justice. He did debate me. So he's in a bubble, but he's not as much in it compared to, I think, the other members of the Labour Social, which are like Tansky and what's his face, Graham. I think they are more in the bubble. They are more in the bubble than Bowler Hatman and Phil. So I didn't want to mention names, but might as well. Screw it. What are they going to do?
I know you understand.
I know the audience understands. So to be fair, yeah, the EU was just about to. Yeah, that's true. That is true, Kevin. So the UK really couldn't get out of it. I mean, I suppose we could have dragged out the implementation of it. So it's not. There were ways around it. I'll say that. Like, we could have timed it out, I think. So yeah, I don't think Bowler Hatman knew. He agreed to it. He agreed. Oh, okay. Actually, yeah. No, I see your point. Did discuss. He's willing to go on other people's channels and discuss stuff, which is fair. Ollie, I check out now and again. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Okay. Well, I don't. As much as I like flaming other people, I don't like flaming other people to an extent. Not people in the space who I probably will never meet. I probably will never have to interact with them. But I don't know. In my heart, just it's not something I do a ton of. But yeah, that's just me. But yeah.
Can we rejoin the single market? So Phil.
And this is where your boy starts really cooking here. Bowler Hatman looks great in a butcher's apron suit as per Budapest Junior. Oh yeah, that was a weird outfit.
Use that.
In all honesty, we will have to, and it's there's several reasons why. First of all, it's an absolute nonsense, this idea of compensating with exports around the world.
So this is where you can see I'm kind of really focused now, because this is where things start going. They start heating up. What I'll do is I'm gonna get a drink quickly. I'll be right back. I'll leave my banner up here because my banner's dope. BRB. Hi chat. Just hope everyone's good. Just give me 2 seconds, RJ. I'm just gonna get a drink quick. Is my banner up on OBS? Bear with me. There it is. I'll be back. Once the banner goes, I'll be back. Is it? Okay. So about that, gang. Had to get a drink. Boy, it's parched. Oh, absolutely parched. BRV. No, I was meant to write BRB. Oh well. So yeah, let me carry on.
Well, you can talk about it empirically. You can look at the fact that doing that means it takes longer for things to get here. So the idea of a just-in-time supply chain, you've got like automotive factories or something like that need parts, and they're only going to carry a couple of days worth of stock. That you can't get them from Japan.
So like you can see, I'm pretty dialed in here.
So there is no possibility of a just-in-time supply chain.
Yes, speak amongst yourselves.
When you're trying to increase your trade around the world, it's always going to be subject to things like volatile fuel prices because it's coming by a boat. If you're lucky, it doesn't fall off the boat into the sea, because that's a thing. And then there's the other side of it, which is if you look at where the money is, where the consumer power is in the world, a lot of it is concentrated in Europe. There simply isn't.
That's mean, Simon. That is mean. Okay. That one's mean. Let's see.
Enough money around the world to compensate, because the world isn't full of the amount of money we trade with Europe just sitting waiting for us to somehow make it easy and to want our goods. The world can already buy our goods.
I think the issue is I talk at 1.25 speed and Phil talks at like normal speed.
We're not getting better terms, so that's a nonsense.
Furiously writing notes.
But then the
headphones look weird. It's because I'll tell you why. It's because these are like weird headphones. So there's a cable in the middle somewhere around there, and it's done that for adjustability. It's actually really good, especially with I've got them on now. They're actually really good with glasses.
The thing is, and this just doesn't get mentioned enough in the media, we have a serious problem with imports. So it's not just about the exports, it's the imports. We do not have import controls. We have customs procedures. People have to fill in all the customs documentation, say what's in it, so that duties may be applicable. But what if someone lies on the document?
Oh, Phil's headphones. I think they look fine, to be honest. I think they look pretty normal. It's just he's got his headpiece up here. Maybe that's why his earpiece, not his mouthpiece, even's up here.
A few months ago, customs found a lorry chock full of cigarettes. There was no attempt to hide it. Obviously, it wasn't. The documentation did not say it contained cigarettes. And there's loads of duties on those. There was no attempt.
Yeah, this is happening more and more
to hide it, and the reason for that is because they know there's hardly any checks taking place. They're just sending whole lorries through. They caught this one, and it was the biggest haul ever. And the reason it's the biggest haul ever is because every now and then they'll catch one, and the smugglers are just so blatant now. They know that almost everything gets through. They're just sending it all in, no attempt to hide it.
I'm trying to think which brand it is. I think there might be Turtle Beaches, but I'm not sure.
All just jammed in there. We are losing a fortune. And then there's the standards controls. We don't even have the documentation for that. So we've got...
I think he's just got a longer head than me. That's probably why.
Criminal gangs sending in cheap meat because, of course, there'd be checks around the EU. There's none in Britain. So it's unfit for human consumption. I described it recently as Gordon Ramsay's kitchen nightmares in a lorry.
That is disgusting.
Pretty funny. That was a good joke. I like it.
Passing through. In October, they did a let's find out how bad the problem is. Over a 24-hour period, they checked 22 lorries.
As a guy who watches a lot of Kitchen Nightmares, I can tell you that joke is still funny.
21 of them contained food that was like maggot infested or otherwise totally unfit for human consumption, cooked and uncooked, all the rest of all the nightmare. And that's coming through every day. And at some point, we're either going to let in a disease that rips through our livestock.
So at the moment, African swine flu is the one that everyone's scared of. The frame on the headphones just look like the brace of the headphones tied. Okay.
Or something is going to happen that massively backfires on us. And I'm not saying the government won't be able to excuse it. There's all sorts of tricks they can employ, but it is going to massively backfire. So it's not sustainable to have no import or standards controls. And yet, we can't just put them in place. Michael Gove himself said we need about 50,000 officials.
It's estimated there's going to be a need for about 50,000.
Yeah, this is something I've spoken about a lot of, and the amount that would cost us is a fortune, an absolute fortune. I'll be honest.
New customs officers. Is it feasible to recruit and train that many people in less than 6 months? And who's going to foot the bill for it?
Well, we still don't have the necessary amount of customs officers, so.
Good question.
Yes, it is, and the government stands behind it.
Lol.
Stinks, doesn't it?
We still don't have it.
Can't get 50,000 officials. You can't get that many and train them up. Where are you going to put them? We haven't got the infrastructure. We're an island. You can't just expand outwards. That's the sea. So we're completely knackered on that as well. So it is unsustainable to be outside the single market. It's not just suboptimal; it's unsustainable.
Very good.
Ready, Maj? When you're ready.
Okay, cool. I think kind of feel what you've listed there is a lot of UK side issues, and the EU.
This is where in debates you've got to address what the other person is saying as well. It's imperative you do that.
Turn around and say, in the words of Tobey Maguire, I missed the part where that's my problem. And so if we look at kind of the...
I wish he put the clip in there.
EEA and the single market. Right now, according to Article 128 of the EEA agreement, the only way to join the single market or to join the EEA agreement is via EFTA or by becoming a full member of the EU. And that's one of the key problems.
So there you go. Like, if you look at what he's mentioned there, he's all mentioned UK side problems. It's not mentioned a way to actually join the single market. What he spoke about was why we need to join the single market. There are two different things here.
They did ask an expert back in, I think, 2015 it was, Dr. I'm going to butcher this, I'm very sorry, Dr. Ulf Svendrup, I don't know how to pronounce that.
I'm sorry about that. I apologise to this day, Dr. Sven.
And he was asked multiple questions about, the single market and other things. And he also said that the EEA is constructed of two pillars. You either become a member of EFTA or the EU. And so he was asked the question, can the EEA be expanded? And he said, the EU's preferred model would be to put countries in the single market where they don't get a veto and they don't get things like voting rights. It would make sense. They pay into the budget. The EU gets all the benefits and less of the downsides. The problem is the EFTA countries are very much against the amendment of the EEA, and the EFTA members are a part of the EEA, so it would have to go through them. They have to sign off on it. And the EFTA countries right now, they don't want to renegotiate.
Yes,
the
that's
EEA
true. Norway said no to us joining EFTA. That is very true.
Agreement, because there's.
But according to some people, it's not an issue, because that was a long time ago. But then he cites a book from 2016, which is still relevant, apparently.
Their markets are.
You guys realise every time you mention that debate with Bowler Hat Man, it hurts inside. It actually
stings, doesn't it? It
actually does. It does, because it was the most painful experience I think I've had to suffer through in my life. That was not a physical experience. Ian Dunt said, "Yeah." Every time I hear this, it's just like this. This is what it feels like. Is that sound there? That is the sound. That is the sound I hear. That is the emotion I feel. So yeah, thanks guys.
I think there are less countries than they were when they.
Every time he gets mentioned, every time you guys mention that debate, I'll reference him. I'm gonna play that sound.
negotiated originally about 25 years ago because countries left to join the EU, and so they feel like they're in a vulnerable position. So unless the UK somehow got the EU somehow got the EFTA countries to renegotiate the EEA, that's not going to happen. Norway are dead against us joining EFTA because of our size. You've got a market of 5 million people in EFTA versus a market of 65 million people in the UK. EFTA see that as kind of a threat to us because at the moment
a threat to them. I misspoke there.
Doesn't negotiate with EFTA when it comes to putting in new trading arrangement.
When I tuned in, I didn't realise it was going to be this. I remember when Marcus was so upset about Phil talking over him, over the one he's involved in. Yeah, I can imagine it does. To be honest, is someone stealing jobs? No, have to see that. What? Anyways, yeah, I can imagine why it'd be quite frustrating. That's why. Having this as a structured debate is better. But again, like when people try and talk over you, you gotta be willing to fight your corner. And it's tough. It is tough at times. But yeah, nails on a board. What?
They do say, this is what's happening. This is how it's going to impact you guys. And EFTA, it's important for them to speak with one voice. If they have any issues, they kind of discuss it. They can't really do much, but they can say, we have an issue. But then you've got a situation where EFTA is being outsized by the UK. If it was in the single market, where the EU would have to set up consultations with the UK in that context and say, this situation, this is happening. And
it's because I've got facts. That's what I like. This is what I have said there is largely indisputable. Because this is what I've listed there, and it's still true to this day, I think, which is that they have talked about if there's a will, there's a way, and all this stuff. But again, you're negotiating with so many different countries, so many different leaders who have so many different interests that collide. It just doesn't work.
One of the issues I have with the system of if the UK join the single market is who governs over disputes, because EFTA have their own court system, EFTA have their own agreements, which apparently, according to Dr. Svender, there are issues where he thinks the EFTA kind of courts are siding, the EFTA kind of courts are thinking, what would the EU courts do in this situation, and deciding like that. So there are lots of issues with EFTA. To the point where I think Norway has debated for a long time, should we have just joined the EU, or is that even possible? Should we just become a full EU member? Because then we get voting rights. We sacrifice on fishing a bit. I think we sacrifice on farming.
Yep. And again, the farming block in Norway is one of the things that doesn't necessarily swing a vote, but does help parties get a decent amount in the elections. That was one of the So you got the one, the most. You got the current. It's not the current PM. It's not the last one we had. The one who was there during COVID, who got moaned at for partying. It was the one before her, the blonde one. She was the one who's very reliant on farming votes, I believe. I can't remember her name. But she talked about how she didn't want us in the in EFTA anyway because we'd messed it up. Originally she thought, it's going to be great. The UK is going to come in, they're going to have size. It's going to make EFTA a much stronger bloc. But in the end, she realizes it's a bad idea. Screenshot that and keep it to remind you of the moment his soul fell out. What? But yeah, hi Yura. What's Yura saying? Didn't say hello earlier, but I was having a curry. If you're disappearing for a drink, you can put a funny video on, preferably one where walks into it. I don't have that video, but if you've got it, send me it and I'll put it on.
But was it worth us staying the way we are versus becoming a full EU member? And I think, given the fact that the EEA would have to be amended, that's one of the key issues there. And the EFTA countries have said no. They're very keen on us not to join EFTA. They're very keen on the EEA not to be amended. And if the EU said, all right, fine, we're going to ditch you guys and we're going to make a new agreement with the UK, you guys, see you later, sayonara, guys, that's not going to go down well internationally.
I don't have see you chump on the soundboard, but yeah.
Because you're not, I would argue in some ways getting an amendment to the EEA is more difficult than joining the EU because you have more member states that are involved in this. And I think that's one of the key issues where if we talk about rejoining the single market, it's a very big picture thing. And it's not as easy to say, we'll just rejoin the single market. It won't be an issue, which a lot of commentators have said. And
there's a certain speedrun thing with Phil, or maybe he's just, what?
It's like, well, how are you going to do that, Chief? What's the process? Can you... And I think that's maybe something Phil and I can talk about in a few minutes once my time's up. How am I doing for time?
I got 2 minutes. We've got 1 minute.
Sweet. I can coast. But yeah, point being is you're going to have to amend the EEA agreement. This is why talking fast really helps. I've perfected it. and that's very difficult. I get told off for it all the time. See, I can even do this stuff. But yeah, that's the point.
You don't have to use the whole time because we can just go straight to
I have my time. I'm going to use my time. I will not be told how I can use my time. This time has been allocated to me by the host. That is you. You cannot take my time from me. Okay? Time is one of the few luxuries we have in this world. Okay? How am I doing?
Oh, you finished.
Oh, that's bullshit. I guarantee you I've got 30 seconds. I guarantee you I've 30 seconds.
Go on, 30 seconds if you want it.
All right, sure. That's kind of my argument. It's a legalistic, very boring argument of these are the rules. You play by the rules. If you do not play by the rules, we will take our ball and we will go home, sir. Welcome to the Brexit, as a Dutch man once said. But that's my point of it's not as easy just to say we'll join the single market. It's very much, yes, you have size, but if you're overruling the EFTA kind of countries, the EFTA countries are going to look at you and say you're a bit too big to be in this group, and that you're saying, no, mate, you're not small, you're not big enough to bully us. And that's kind of my issues with the argument. See, I'm done.
And that's one of the reasons why I think EFTA would allow Scotland in, because again, Scotland's population isn't that big. I think they'll probably be a similar size to Norway. So it'd add, a bit more power into the bloc without anyone being oversized, because EFTA does negotiate trade deals as well, which is something I failed to mention here.
Look at that time management, bro.
Good work. Okay, let's just go straight into the open forum then. We've got 15 minutes. Let's talk.
So I'd like to give a quick introduction to this before we get into it. So I think the main disagreement between Phil and Big Maj is the way to get back into the single market.
So I can say, the first half of the debate is a bit tricky because of the way the topics were done. But I think that half the debate there, I addressed his points. Which was, he was talking about how it's affecting Britain. I was like, look, that's not the EU's problem. That's why I addressing his security point earlier would really, strengthen the point that they don't need us, not as much as we think.
Maybe Phil, as Big Maj was speaking before, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, he's absolutely right. It's not a case of as soon as we decide we want to join the single market, we just say, can we join the single market, please? Waiter, come over here. We would like to order single market access. We are going to have to negotiate, but ultimately this is politics and economics. A large economy, is... it's like in the EU, you have, Maj was saying earlier on, you've got member states that are sort of equal, but some are more equal than others. And the ones that are a bit smaller, the way they often extract concessions is they wait for something where it requires unanimous support. And then they go, right, this is where we get some shiny things for ourselves. So the UK is not even going to attempt to rejoin the single market until it fulsomely wants to. I mean,
Again, I think we're still a ways out from even getting to that point, to be honest with you. Because of the fact that people, I think the polls might say people are more willing are willing to accept freedom of movement, but I think once you get Farage or someone like a real fash in the mix, someone who's a bit of a fash, it will go. A lot of this is our shared positions around the wars. I think that's true.
I keep going on my channel. There's people that I think are a bit too impatient about it, and I can understand it because we're suffering every day we're out. But until there is
we're the big three, but remember, F the big three, it's just big me. That's what Britain said.
Real pressure from within this country to want to rejoin, it's a non-starter.
I think,
but as soon as there is, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, from the EU perspective, right? I don't represent the EU. Shout me if you wanna sort that out. But point being is from the EU perspective, we have kind of the rule set. You're going to have to go through how does the process, once we say, all right, we want to be in the single market, we were stupid, we didn't realize how good we had it, blah blah blah. What's the process? Do we contact the Commission? How does this process go? That's the question.
It has to obviously begin with the Commission, but as you say, it's going to be a completely new process. Because I completely agree, and there are people who keep saying, well, we should join EFTA, and there is a non-starter because our economy eclipses all of the existing EFTA countries combined.
I'm not sure there's any point in talking about that. And the next thing, when it comes to EU, you will need to wait until it's no longer the UK before you can address it. I don't know if that's fully true, but I think like I said, the problem is we're not big enough for the EU to care that much, especially when they've gotten what they want out of us. They got a free trade agreement. So, and given the fact that we're still not going to do import checks, there's no major loss for them. There is a little bit with the customs and stuff, but as long as EU trade doesn't drop off that much with the UK, I don't think they care that much. Britain still has a slightly oversized picture. I don't think it's slightly. I think it's massively oversized, to be honest.
And we have a very
we're not big dog anymore. That's the thing we didn't realize. I think people forget what happened during the Suez Crisis, where the Americans basically said, "What are you doing? Stop that!" And we said, "Okay, sorry, my bad," and then we left. People forget about the Suez Crisis. Like that's the moment I think a lot of people in Britain, I think a lot of politicians in Britain realised we're not that guy anymore. You're not that guy, pal.
Different way of doing things. It'd be a bull in a china shop. So that's a non-starter from my point of view. It's also true, of course, that EFTA will be wary, as you say, of renegotiating the EEA.
Found a member of EFTA equals UK, Portugal, Sweden, Austria, Norway, and Switzerland, Finland, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. Subsequently joined the EU. Now EFTA is just Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland, which is true.
But again, wherever there's a political will to do something, there's always a way. And it will.
I don't know. I guess we've got to let him cook and see what he's going to say.
And it will require a lot of technical discussions, because the other side of it, also, as you say, is the EU would have to want us back into the single market. It's not enough for us to just ask, but we are a large consumer market. And again, I go back to this original thing that the whole purpose for the EU is ultimately the security of Europe. A country or a collection of countries in a whole continent is prosperous when it's secure, and what you don't want is a rogue state with a massive military and dickhead.
I mean, we've had prosperity. I think to an extent in Europe we've lived okay, and you've had Russia be that. 2014. I think it was 2014 they annexed Crimea. The idea that you couldn't have it. I mean, I don't think that's really true, to be honest with you. I think Russia would be the prime example of what the UK could really, in a sense, become. And Russia has proved itself it's not a major threat. I mean, we have put massive resources behind Ukraine, and the UK is more powerful than Russia, but I don't think we're that powerful, especially we're an island. There's only so much we can actually do. Okay, this is just believe, and yeah, pretty much. I mean, realistically, right? One of Britain's major things was because we're an island, we're harder to invade, but it's going to be pretty difficult for us to invade Europe. I think the comparisons to Belarus don't make sense. A comparison to Russia, I think, would make a lot more sense, because we're not a rich nation. We have some rich people, a lot of rich people, and we have some very poor people. Just more like Russia does. I would argue. I think we're more built like them. I think.
Getting elected off your north coast. So, and all there's while ever Northern Ireland remains a part of the EU, that's always going to be a powerful motivating factor as well, which we can't forget. So,
I'm not sure when unification will happen, but I'm not sure at what point we'll see Northern Ireland kind of speed off economically versus the rest of the UK. To be honest. EFTA membership does not equal EEA membership. Switzerland is not that is true. Switzerland have a strange agreement, but I'd imagine the whole point of us joining EFTA would be to try and get EEA access. And if us joining EFTA doesn't give us that, then that would be a problem. Scotland is a rich nation. That is true, but England specifically is not a rich. I would argue it's not that rich a nation. It has a lot of rich people. At the top, but I don't think it's very imbalanced if you look at us versus a Scandinavian country.
There will at some point be a lot of political capital from America as well. America will get involved, if nothing else, around securing peace in Ireland.
Yeah, it's part of the single market for goods, which is just a very specific area.
And you will have immense political will to get this done, but it does have to begin with the UK saying there's no debate anymore, the debate is over. A bit like climate change. When I was growing up, it was treated as if there's a debate. Now, even though you still have climate deniers and you still have them in government, most people go, yeah, we've knackered it.
Phil does this a lot with his members stream. Just says we will rejoin. If called him out, who I called him out last night by his private stream where his members don't like facts. I mean, I'd have to see specifics of it. I'll be honest, but what was he saying? We'll just rejoin the EU. What was he saying again? Like, it's kind of, if I don't want to be super critical, because I know a lot of YouTubers do this, but again, you always run the risk of things becoming echo chambery. That's one of the major problems you could run into, especially if you're doing like hidden streams as well. Like it does feel a bit like we're, a bit Politburo kind of style.
I think we need to fix it.
I think what I'd say is, what's the process? Because again, if we can't really ignore the freedom movement stuff, but we debated it earlier. That's fine. With the court stuff, the EEA has its own court. AFTA has its own court, right? What's the system for dealing with disputes and all of that kind of stuff? Because what I'm trying to argue is the scale of the problem is so tremendous that it's just not going to be worth it for them, because they're going to have to set up a new court system. You're going to have to convince people in England in England predominantly to be rule takers, not rule makers. All of the arguments that Brexiteers used back in 2016, they will bring back those arguments, and it'll be much harder this time round to argue against it. But the only thing we can argue really is the economics and the trade side of it.
I would say it's the other way around. I would say you'll point out that we are rule takers right now, but we don't have a say. We were rule takers before, but we may.
I think so. I don't know if he does it like that on purpose, because some people look for kind of comparisons. I do it as well. When you look for something to compare another issue with, so I don't think he's. I think it's just it's the way he speaks, or maybe the way he thinks. I don't know. So it's not something I'm going to be super critical of, purely because I do that a lot as well. Like I don't maybe not on stream so much, but as a person, I do it. Why? That's why. Yeah. So that's one of the things. So I'm not going to be critical of someone who does it, but I think in a kind of debate or discussion format is annoying. But that's why you got to focus on the key bits. Like, if I went after him on climate change, it wouldn't make any sense. The way into the EU is clearly stated in the EU's website. To be fair, and this is one of my best jokes that I sent to someone, was they said on the EU's pages a single market that spans like however many European countries. So I said the British version is, and I put it in like kind of MS Paint text. It was how to join a single market that spans Europe. That's one of my favourite. Honestly, it's such a good joke. I loved it.
The rules. You get someone to point to an EU rule, and in 97% of the cases, it was Britain that either came up with it or came up with it. And
with a big three.
Now we're still following the same rules. If we want to trade with any market in the world, we have to follow their rules. We do not decide any market's rules anymore. We're not even deciding our own. Australia told us what our market rules are now. So, we literally decide no rules. But we have to follow them all. Where do we have a say? Nowhere.
There's a really interesting case that's come up with Nissan and Ford both saying they're pulling out the UK, despite Nissan getting paid quite a hefty amount of money. But one of the things I suddenly twigged was Biden's green policy, where he's offered, is it 370 billion?
Yeah.
For green manufacturing, production, and supply chains within the
Sorry, I'm
US.
just messing with my soundboard.
So from what I could tell, the US military have realised that actually getting stuff from abroad is a really dumb idea when they've got everything inside the US. Even if it saves money, long term it's not sustainable. So they put this policy forward. But with green, this is part of the reason why we're losing manufacturing. But that then means we're now caught in the middle of a...
This is true. This is something I've actually spoken about before as well. We are, in effect, in somewhat of, between a kind of... There will be, I think, some sort of, not a trade war per se, but a two kind of big powers kind of trying to persuade companies to set up shop in their respective area. That's what we're looking at, I think.
The US pull from manufacturing and yanking all their stuff out of the US, and they're just going to transport it over the Atlantic. And the EU sectioning off. We're literally smack bang in the middle.
There was a Bloomberg piece about it where basically the EU are looking at how do we compete with the US in terms of green subsidies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it was basically the EU are saying, look, we're not going to go to the WTO here. We're going to do this on our own, and we're going to try and drag as much manufacturing as we can into the EU. They're saying, both countries are, or both countries, both
blocks.
Both blocks are
I appreciate him helping me there. That's something I do appreciate.
setting up semiconductors to build their own CPUs, so they don't have to be as reliant on Taiwan. So that's a big deal as well, because one of the reasons why car manufacturers.
Yeah, I'll do this more, but I don't know how important it would be. They don't do a ton of debates, but I'm hoping they do more. I think this one might put them off because it didn't do that well, and it was probably a hassle to put together. I'll be honest, because with these two, because they are political commentators as well. You do want to get involved. Like it's like some weeks, honestly, some days I feel real. Like when NJ did the debate with Bowler Hatman, I was like, damn, I feel like I'm on the bench here because I want to be doing that kind of stuff. And then I realised I actually really don't want to be doing that kind of stuff because that man is not a clown. He's the entire circus. So, more for me. But, like having discussion with people is something I actually enjoy doing a lot. So there's that.
Manufacturing struggle is not just because the economy is in a mess, the global economy, it's because they haven't got any chips. That's the main problem. And so what they're doing is setting up a semiconductor, because what they can do is everything in-house. They can build as much of the car parts as possible. They can get as much of the electric vehicle battery as possible, as much of the CPUs as possible, build it all in-house. And when you go to export it, generally, the tariffs are a bit lower, I think, rather than doing it on individual parts. So what that means is they can sell into other markets fairly easily, which is kind of what their goal is.
All right. See you, Ruth.
But I think, just to interrupt for a second, I think
remember, so we're at the 47-minute mark.
Everyone is pretty much in agreement that the UK needs to be part of that. It needs to be part of the European framework now. It needs to be part of the single market. But I think how does the UK actually get back in there? That's the problem.
This is something I appreciate Max doing as well, because he's kind of pushing the conversation along from a place of where we agree to something where it's a discussion. This is meant to be a debate or a discussion. So I do appreciate him doing that.
Max is looking for violence here. Max is looking for us to dispute. He's an instigator here. He's the instigator. He's trying to get us to fight. But I guess it kind of goes back to the question of we know where the path to the EU lies, right?
He's kind of set me back on so I can actually go back to the important topics rather than waste time. So that's what good hosting is. It's sometimes interjecting with facts or whatever, but pushing the conversation along. This is something I do appreciate actually looking back on this.
Discuss that. I think we agree largely on that one. My question is around the single market, because that's why predominantly I am here, I think, is to kind of debate there. And I think that what you've listed is a load of UK reasons to join the single market. But I think given the scale of the problem with who deals with legal disputes, the committees, all of the kind of work, and, if you look at the headache Switzerland have given to the EU over coming up with agreements, agreeing to things, the UK could give the EU far more headaches if it wanted to. And that's one of the reasons against us being...
I mean, we are literally giving them headaches over Northern Ireland. We've caused them endless problems over Northern Ireland regarding the Windsor Framework, or the Northern Ireland Protocol, whatever you want to call it. We've given them endless issues over this. So what do you call it? Yeah. So imagine us being in the role Switzerland are. It'd be a nightmare.
Because if we look at it like this, right, to amend the EEA, you're going to need all of the EU member states and all of the EFTA states to agree to it. Good luck with that. That's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to set up new mechanisms to deal with all of that kind of stuff. And then it's not viable, in my opinion, to do that kind of mechanism. What the EU will tell us is just try and put your application to rejoin the EU, because it's going to be way easier, because the EFTA countries are adamant they are not going to do this.
This is something that Tony Blair Institute talked about as well, like how difficult I've done myself here with the pause. This is something that actually Tony Blair Institute talked about. Maybe they watched my videos on it, who knows? But they talked about joining the getting an EEA expansion is just really difficult, and you don't get the benefits of the veto and things like that. So this is actually what I've said here has been backed up by other organisations. So that's had similar conclusions. One robot retired with one new what?
They are happy to say no. They're happy to say no on this, because they have the power here. They have the leverage. They don't necessarily need leverage, but they have the power in this regard. So in my opinion, us trying to join the single market, get these new mechanisms set up, is a very British way of thinking of, we just get a bespoke deal. That's the issue I'm having here.
That's a little bit. That's a Daniel Hannan reference there. If anyone missed that one,
you see what I'm saying?
Phil?
Well, they are always bespoke deals. In many ways, for me, it would be a lot tidier if we did just decide to rejoin the EU. If the country was in a place where it said, we're being killed here. We're losing all the manufacturing, but we're not sure about this EU thing, but, can we just rejoin the single market? And then it was like, actually, it's just way easier to join the EU. And some bright spark was able to say, and if we join the EU, we also get to decide the rules.
And this is where I think Phil was trying to. It's one of the things that Phil was trying to do, where he talked about joining the single market and then joining the EU from there. But again, like, it doesn't. The problem is it doesn't work like that. And what chances do you have of telling people, oh, just join the single market? Oh, we can't do that. Oh, well, let's just join the EU then. And it was like, oh, okay, no one. That's not how you win over people. Like, it's a lie.
We're going to accept anyway. And actually, do you know what? Pay less. The likes of Norway pay more for the size of their economy into the budget to be part of the single market and have no say.
That's what I mean. Like, if we try and rejoin the single market, Norway are going to say, look, we paid more than you per capita. Now it's time to get your checkbook out because you're paying in big. You're paying in big. That's kind of my issue.
Even as far as the GDP is concerned. Norway pay way more.
And even then, like, it's not. It doesn't. Switzerland have all sorts of issues with it as well. Like, it's not. The Swiss model is not feasible at all, in my opinion. It doesn't. I don't think that you will ever do it again. I think both countries have regrets. I think in the way it was done, to be honest.
I mean, they might be against us, or they might try and use it in negotiations against the EU, and it just causes more headaches of them saying, "Oh, look, they paid way less than us per capita. We want to pay less into the EU budget now. We want to pay less for the services we get," and that's what I mean. It's going to cause a giant headache within the EU.
I'm kind of annoyed at myself that it's taken me kind of so long into the second half of this debate to really just dumb it down and say it as basic as possible. That's probably one of the things I need to work on. Just watching this back, actually, because here I've laid it out pretty clearly what the facts are. And I think this is one of the things I do when I get frustrated in a debate is, okay, let me make it as simple for you as I can, which is these are the facts. Please argue against them.
Also within AFTA, because they haven't renegotiated this thing in, I think, 25 years, which is a
long
long time.
Well, it's very complex. You don't want to.
That's what I mean. And we're dealing with very complex things here, which have a lot of moving parts. And generally, that's why you divert to experts like the one I cited earlier from Norway. And given the EU's preferred model is countries to join the EEA and get single market access, that hasn't happened. And the reason that hasn't happened is because AFTA are like, no, they either join you or they join us, or they're not part of the single market. That's it. And that's kind of where the dilemma is.
The issue will be in the UK is, and the reason why I think there will be a major push to try and join the single market first, is because if you then go down the route of saying, actually, it's just easier to join the EU and we'll have a say then you have to deal with the issue of the euro. Now, you can look at it and go, there's several countries that joined after.
It did seem short. I think, yeah, it's just looking back on it, especially with me adding so much commentary in, I think it does feel a lot longer. But, it's kind of the point of it. It's a review just to say, like, maybe this is one of the things where, I did this against Bowler Hatman as well, where I got really annoyed at him. So, I said, look, let me explain to you, like, you're a child. And that's what I did. I said, do you think the EU's doing more or less trade with us? He goes, yeah, are we doing less or more trade with the EU? Less. Okay, cool. So please explain to me why they need us back in. Yeah, be a life debate. That's one of the reasons why you make notes and you try and focus on the specific things you want to address and what the other person is saying. You already told Starmer, yeah, close alignment. They have actually, yeah, that's true. They did say that recently, that certain things are not going to happen. That is true. I think I covered it during a stream. I don't think I did a video on it. So yeah, it's true.
Adopting the euro was mandatory, and they have not adopted it because they, you keep asking, and I keep saying, you go to Poland, how's it going? Brilliant. How are you going on with adopting the euro? Oh, it's fantastic. Is it going to be anytime soon? Oh, it might be next century. And in theory, you can do the same, but you can't say that. If we had a campaign for a referendum to rejoin the EU, you can't say, look, we'll have to commit to adopting the euro, wink, wink, but it might take us a while, because that would be bad faith. So you will have to act. And what you can do is you can.
I think the EU will see straight through that, to be honest. Joining the Eurozone seems to be the longest process, because, Croatia, I think they were EU members for a while, but I think they've only just joined the Eurozone recently.
Have a referendum that says, in principle, can we negotiate? And then we'll have another referendum when all of the terms are sorted.
That is true. That is current members. when we had an opt-out. That is true, but the issue is like it does still take time to join the Eurozone from there. The EU want us to have proportional representation to stop falling women. What?
And it's all clear and debated on whether we make the final step. And you can say that, and you can try and say we will attempt to negotiate retaining the pound. But again, I don't know in 10 years' time or 15 years' time where we'd even be on that issue.
That is true, yeah. It's going to take bipartisanship. But I think I'm not sure when. I don't know if that will happen. But I don't know if the Conservative Party can have a turn that big, I'll be honest. But again, we don't even know if the Conservative Party are going to survive. And, Reform UK wouldn't want it. So it'd be quite tricky. Because... Well, I guess on the first pass of the post, you'd have to see who the major parties are post-election, but there'll always be a right-wing contingent in this country. There will always be that. If the UK wants to rejoin the EU, it should join properly and appreciate what the EU is about. And the EU is about cash money. But yeah, no, I don't think that's one of the things we ever did, to be honest. Well, I say the UK ever did, respect what the EU is about. Is proportional representation a prerequisite? It's not a prerequisite. But we can bring up the let's do this actually. Let's have a look. The Copenhagen criteria. All right, let's have a look. Bruh. The Copenhagen criteria is this. Let's have a look. Okay, so stability of institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for and protection of minorities. Now, does the UK have stable institutions? I would argue, maybe you can argue that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would give us stable institutions. Guaranteed democracy depends how you define democracy. Rule of law, we do have strong rule of law. I would say but the laws are wrong. When it comes to human rights, we don't have that because we don't have the freedom to protest properly in this country. So again, that one's a doubt. And respect for and protection of minorities. No, we hate minorities in this country. So no, I would say no. A functioning market economy, ability to cope with competitive pressure and forces within the EU. I'd say the UK probably does have that. The ability to take on obligations of membership, including capacity to effectively implement the rules, standards and policies that make the body of the EU law and adhere to the aims of political and economic monetary union. So obviously monetary union is the euro. And with the political and economic stuff, again, this stuff is quite vague. So it doesn't actually mention proportional representation. But I think it depends on how you define things like democracy, etc. That's one of the major things. There's a right-wing rump in England. True. That is true.
My argument is one Jacob Rees-Mogg used.
Yeah,
which I started earlier. Yeah. But the issue is, I think, given that if we go back to the single market, the issue there is,
and that's why that's one of the things you got to do in a debate as well, is go back to the topic when it veers off like this. Go back to the topic and ask the questions you want to ask, because that's, I think, in my opinion, that's how you look like you're winning. You're the one who wants to address the actual topic at hand here. This is you're the aggressor in this situation in a sense, or you're the one pushing the action.
On its own, it's a nightmare. Now, I get if you're saying we can convince people to join the single market and say, actually, instead of joining the single market, we should join the EU as a member state, and then we'll get all of these benefits rather than that kind of thing. But I think fleshing out the process of how do we rejoin the single market, I think that's maybe a worthwhile project for yourself to do. I know I've done it, and it's so much reading.
That's because no one knows. That's because the process that takes place to achieve it does not exist at the moment.
And that's what I mean. It would require an amendment to the EEA, but I've kind of listed how you kind of get an amendment to the EEA, which is ridiculously difficult because you're going to have to get EU countries to agree to this.
And that's something I think to this day he hasn't really addressed that whole situation of how it would happen. He's mentioned there's no formal process for it, which is true, but in those videos he did, which really pissed me off, he never addressed that. He said we need to join the single market at least. But then he makes it sound like the single market is a stepping stone to the EU, which is not. In practice, it's not.
Countries to agree to this,
and if I don't know if Phil McCracken is still here, right? is he still pushing the single market nonsense on his private streams? I begs no, honestly.
And then you're going to get other countries saying, do you know what, how about we join the EEA first, and then we get our full membership with the EU later on when everything's kind of sorted out, and that way we have access to the single market. You guys can export your goods, easily, and, it will help us out, it will help you guys out. And that's one of the problems they've run into, because, as I said, countries have asked, can you just amend the EEA and let us into the single market? And EFTA were like, no, we're not doing that. And that's the problem we're going to keep running into.
Can I just say one thing? As it's so positive.
Jesus Christ! Come on, man. Alex, control your friend.
We tend to focus on the UK a lot, but there was a reference to France earlier on in the chat. But are there any other countries that could?
It's not just imposing your own perspective on the debate, but it's more like you got to impose the facts as well. You got to cite, if you depending on what kind of debate you're in, you want to look at facts and things like that, and you want to make sure that what you're arguing is not emotionally based, or you're just making stuff up. You can't be doing.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Because if you're facing someone competent, it's not going to work. When you talked about the UK's problems and all of this stuff, right? And why we need to join the single market, that's fine. But when I talk about the process of joining the single market, how difficult it is, that's where the counter is, and that's what you want to look at. Counters, you want to do a lot of counter punching, but also a lot of getting your points out there as well, which is something I think I did in this one.
Be a problem because one mention I heard was Ireland. Because now Ireland at the moment would not be resistant to Britain or Great Britain rejoining the EU or the single market, but potentially a Sinn Féin-led government could be a problem. I don't believe that. Some people do.
I think with that question, it's because obviously Sinn Féin want Irish unification. It's above everything. So the UK joining the EU, or however you want to phrase it, would be a bit difficult for them, because it would resolve basically all the issues that we have now. But I think
the issues regarding the border problem we would have had, the issues around the protocol and things like that. Yes, our money is too. Yeah, honestly, money laundering is a problem. You mean like anti-tax avoidance directive? Absolutely nothing to do with Brexit. Rees-Mogg told me from the what?
That's a tough one. It depends how powerful Sinn Féin are within Ireland, but I think Germany, given they're trying to build their service industry up, and other countries like France, they're also trying to do the same. They're trying to bring as many clearinghouses into the EU as possible. Maureen McGuinness is on that one, and she looks very determined to do it. I think that would be one of the issues. Sorry, what was the question again?
Which country?
Ireland. Which countries?
Ireland,
yeah, sorry.
Or
France. France.
That's something you should be careful as well. It's just forgetting what the question is. That's one of the things. Sorry, I'm just replying to someone. I can't spell bloody Vodafone. Sorry, guys. He just asked me to do something for him. I'm just going to sort something out quickly. But yeah, point being is, don't forget the question that you're being asked, because you look a bit silly doing that. Because I looked a bit silly doing that. So that's one of the things to watch out for. But yeah, sophistry is one of the things that I think. I don't know.
One, Germany could be one, because the French ports I think are dealing with this stuff okay. It just depends on which countries I think want to build up their service industries and things like that. And they can look at the UK and say, what can we take out of this, and kind of keep permanently, because the City of London is very, very powerful. You've got top lawyers, accountants, you have everything there in one place, which I don't think many other financial centres have. If you look at even America, Delaware is very powerful when it comes to certain financial aspects. That's where Joe Biden made his name, I think, in Delaware. They have a lot of financial institutions and things like that there. So I don't think even the United States might not be as kind of joined up as the City of London is in that regard. And so they're trying to piece away as much as they can. If you look at, we're out of the Lugano Convention now. So if one of the EU member states said, we want, a lot of court decisions to be made here and our solicitors and lawyers to make loads of money here, that might be one of the things that they look at and say, we don't want the UK in the EU because we want our country to be a financial power or a service industry or whatever. They could be against us very easily. Okay. In that context, so it just depends on.
This is true. Like countries have picked up the slack, but that's something where they have talked about it. They have to, Finland, I think, is one. Portugal is another. These are countries that are competing with us over, investment and things like that. So, this argument is still pretty strong, I think, to this day. I'll be honest. He has a non-constitutional libertarian socialist perspective that just doesn't, because those things don't make sense together. Not really, like a libertarian socialist, like it's just not. That doesn't make sense, I guess unless you're arguing, he's socially liberal, but economically a socialist maybe. But again, that doesn't. It's a weird idea. Or actually, being socially liberal and being kind of left wing economically is fine, but I think ideologically, he doesn't really make sense, especially being a unionist as well.
They want to take away from the UK, and what they want to keep. Sorry, I've jacked all the time. Apologies.
Phil, do you want to just?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I have to say, because again, it's time. By the time we're ready to do this, those movement of services will have already taken place, and once you move something, it doesn't move back, unless there's some compelling reason to do so. Germany, for example, we were incredibly close with Germany in the EU. Germany, we're an ally to Germany. France, we're right next door to them. They don't want us pissing about. Ireland, again, as Michael Martin has been saying recently that we were, worked very closely together in the EU as well. So
he is also, I believe, a monarchist, but I'd have to check that one. That one I'll put a doubt on.
All our immediate neighbours worked well with us. It goes back to what you maybe said earlier on. It's the Eastern European blocs that have a different. That's where there's a lot of differences of opinions, not so much the more traditional original members.
I think just Alex, if we're going to Fergie time here, just quickly.
We're not speaking bum time.
Come on, no. Okay, just one question, right? No. If the UK loses all of these financial services, right, and all of these things, right, what would the UK have to offer the EU in that case? Because we would be a big market, yes, but we would not have as much money as we do now. We would not have, size, GDP, and all that kind of stuff. So, surely the argument of we're a big economy, we're developed, and all that kind of stuff would fall by the wayside if a lot of our financial institutions went. In that case.
The services you're talking about are a really tiny part of the City of London's portfolio, like really small. In fact, as again,
Brexit, we're talking about things like clearinghouses, etc. So I don't know how true this actually is.
It goes as exit from the single market goes with a trading cooperation agreement that basically doesn't cover services. The City of London's fine with it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the EU still has they have a temporary agreement on it. There's something I didn't actually mention at the time. I should have done. There is still a temporary agreement for certain financial services to carry on, and that exists, I think, until McGuinness manages to get that out of the UK. But again, she hasn't managed to do that. So yeah, I think Chatty would, if he's still here, would be the best person. Probably. Well, Fact isn't here. He loves talking about clearinghouses, but Chatty's probably one of the best people to mention that if he's still here about the clearinghouses and McGuinness. So. About financial services and McGuinness, so about financial services and Brexit, so
it's absolutely fine. It's lost what we would consider eye-watering sums of money, and it doesn't care. I read the Financial Times quite a lot, and it's quite happy. I mean, obviously the individuals involved in it, but what you're finding is the people who dealt in those derivatives, say, have just moved. They've moved to France or Berlin or wherever.
It's a slow puncher. That's what's happening. I mean, Max and I were talking in a previous program about Milan. They're growing. They're having a little economic boom in Milan at the moment because they're getting more financial services.
Yeah, there's
of course, if you're a banker, you've got millions of pounds. Wouldn't it be nice to go and spend some time in Milan or in any of the other
I don't get the argument against a written constitution, to be honest with you. I guess the argument would be America. America has a written constitution and that causes them massive problems, but a lot of European countries I think have written constitutions. It doesn't cause them many issues. It's just because the American constitution is so vague on certain things and is so dated that I think is one of the things causing them problems. Yeah, so does Ireland. I don't think having a written constitution is necessarily a bad thing. I think it just depends on how you allow it to be changed. That's one of the questions, I think, because the American one is really hard to amend. constitutionally to the EU's benefit.
Capital cities around Europe where there's a bit more sunshine, there's nice
Less
food,
rain.
yeah, less rain. Why not? Warmer
There's
climate.
more rain in Paris than London.
Yeah, but not in Milan.
warmer.
We go to Milan.
Oh, Paris is beautiful. So, and that
They have baguettes for €1. Right, you can go to any patisserie, and they'll. Yeah, he does say that. To be fair, you go to any patisserie and you can buy a baguette, I believe, in Paris for €1. And what else is there in Paris? There's the Palace of Versailles, which is beautiful, and you can actually go there, not like Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace is wash compared to the Palace of Versailles, right? What else do you have in Paris? I guess you can watch PSG play, but the French league is trash. You can watch Mbappe. So yeah. So yeah, I think does Paris beat London? I don't know, but yeah, no. Not the being more rain in Paris doesn't really. The cheese, yeah, if you like cheese, even though I think Dutch cheese is better, but I'm sure I'll get lynched by French people. But officially, I think Dutch cheese is better. My knowledge won't say expertise is on the movement of goods and agri-foods, not on the movement of money. That's fair. Versailles is a completely different level than Buckhouse. That is true. I would not want to go to Buckhouse, but I can tell you for free. Actually, no, I can't tell you for free. I do want to go to the Palace of Versailles at some point because that is a place where there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of cool stuff and a lot of history there, so that is on the list. So if you're living in France, let me know how cool it is.
I think we can finish there unless anyone has a 30-second little speech they want to make at the end.
Sure, I'll take one, Phil, if you want to go for one after. But I think my issue is, with us, the conversation about rejoining the single market is I think there's a lot of context and a lot of reading that has to happen, and people really need to understand how the EU works, how EFTA works, and how the EEA works. Because, like I said, to get an agreement changed on that would be tremendously difficult, and the question would be: are the UK worth all of this collective sacrifice here when we're not even a member? Perhaps when we were a member, you could have gotten away with this stuff. As Barney has said recently, leaving the EU didn't necessarily mean leaving the single market, but we're not a member anymore, so they won't make concessions for us.
And that's it. I think that's where I really should have gone with it. And I think maybe for me, maybe I'm too. I don't want to say I'm too generous to people. Maybe I don't dumb it down enough or make it as basic as possible for the problems here. In that 30 seconds, I pretty much could have left it at that 30 seconds, and that would have been video done really. Which is that we're not a member anymore. Maybe if we were a member, they would have made concessions for us. That's not going to happen. In terms of reading, I guarantee you a lot of the rejoiners wouldn't understand how EFTA works. I still have a lot of lacking knowledge on EFTA, the EU, lots of different areas I'm still lacking in, and I've done a lot more reading, I would argue, than most of the normies on Twitter who say, why don't we just rejoin the EU, man, rejoin the single market, man, stuff like that. I'd say I'm much more kind of knowledgeable than a lot of the people, some of the people anyways. I'm not going to say a lot because there are a lot of people, but I'd say is, before I think we did this debate, Phil was the one saying, we need to join the single market and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but we can't. And, he did that from, I think, the political view of get them to convince people joining the single market is a good idea. And then you can say, look, actually, joining the EU is a much better idea and try and move them there. But I don't think people would want to believe the person who told them lies about joining the single market, if that makes sense, saying it was a possibility. Scotland has a written constitution already. It's just got to be put in the back. It's just been put in the background as it was assimilated into England. That's fair.
And Phil, last 30 seconds.
Again, it will always come back. I'm going to sound like a broken record. It will always come back to the basic reason the EU exists. The idea of having a country basically be like Belarus, but with a large economy.
There you go, 5. You got the Belarus. But again, I think the Belarus argument really doesn't make sense. I would have said a country more like Russia. I think Russia would have made more sense. So 5, if you're still there, right, he said the Belarus thing.
A large military doesn't make sense to anyone in Europe. Yes, there's going to have to be, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be incredibly difficult for lawyers and politicians, but there will always be a way.
Perfect. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you so much
Max,
for coming on.
Did you get the violence you wanted? Did you get the violence you sought?
Yeah.
Did you get it?
I had put sawdust on the floor, but it was useless at the end.
Max was ready for a referee stoppage. He was going to step in and say no more. He's done.
I've been watching Mortal Kombat. Hoping for some finishing moves to come out.
Finish. Yeah.
Alex is waiting for a fatality to be issued on screen.
But I quite like this.
Is that a beard you got there, Madge?
It is.
Yeah, this is great. I love this.
It's a beard, yes. It's a beard.
Oh, nice. How long have you been growing that, bad boy?
Grew it this morning.
Good work.
I ripped that from Paul Chowdhury, but yeah, it's pretty funny. I do. It's one I enjoy when it comes to Asian people and beards. So Phil's arguments are believe. It's not really that. I think he's trying to argue like we're the UK's the security argument. I think it doesn't make sense. If you can simplify, you can explain, and you're good enough at that. Yeah, I think maybe that's something I need to do in debates a bit more. Just kind of simplify the argument and make it as clear as I can what I'm arguing. So that way, it's harder for them to kind of avoid it. Yeah, I love Paul Chowdhury. He's great. Yeah, he's pretty funny. I can't lie. His Fire in the Booth is one of my favourite ones. The way you look at yourself, look at you versus Phil, is you're nuts. You're nuts and bolts in reality. Phil's thoughts and prayers. Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely looked like it. So yeah, I don't think there's much more to say. I might be on Discord for a little bit. What I'll do is I'll drop you guys a Discord link as I do once in a while. What I'll do is I'll drop you guys a Discord link. If you're not in the Discord, probably join it. The more people I get in, the more active I can be on there. I'll be honest, excuse me. And that way, I can't. It's hard to do chats where they're just me, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a link. Oops, have I botched that? No, that should be fine. Let me know if there's an issue with that one. If you click on that, there should be a link to my Discord server, so you can join my Discord server where I'll probably. That's on the site. Okay, but I'll be with you guys in a minute. But yeah, that's my Discord link. Oh no, Fearless is here. No, go away. Oh no, boo. No, sorry guys. 1 second. I'm just gonna have to. If you want to see my response to him joining, then you're gonna have to join the server. But point being is this: Paris is a class city. Great metro, great food, great art galleries and museums. I do love museums. I don't care much for art galleries. The view from some French word tower is awesome, and the windmill on the Moulin Rouge at night is out of this world. GDPR says data should be understandable to a 13-year-old. What? Carry on. Going in. A car is going in on Monday to be repaired. Fair. Earliest, please tell him to what? You guys don't make any sense whatsoever. The lunatics have left the asylum. But yeah, just for you guys, especially because I've got the day off tomorrow, I'll be in the Discord server for a little bit and we can do a chat on there. I'll try to switch headphones. But yeah, no, I think this debate went well. I think it was a much clearer victory I thought at the time, but I don't think he addressed, with the single market stuff, he had to concede a lot of points, which I think he wouldn't have done. Well, I wish I had more. I wish I actually put out examples of him saying we should join the single market. That's one of the things that I do wish. I think I need to have ready the quotes that that they have argued. I think that's one of the things I need to work on. As well, just have the stuff ready where he kept saying we need to join the single market. At least it's okay, how are we going to do that? Because you don't address that in your videos. So that's one of the things I think to work on. Economics Discord ban you for saying what? Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. If you do watch this back, let me know what you guys think. Yeah, you need quotes. I think quotes is key. I think that's one of the things I was lacking here because I was prepared for him more to argue against us just being able to join the single market, which I didn't have. That's one of the things I was more prepared for, but he didn't do it, and that's one of the things where it threw me off. That and the Belarus point are the things that threw me off. I think the Belarus one definitely was a weird, not even a curveball. It went out of the baseball. What they call it, a pitch. The baseball, whatever the hell they call it in baseball. It went off out the stadium and back in and straight bamboozled me there. So yeah, that was that. But I don't think that one was that strong, to be honest. But anyways, I'll jump off. I'll see you guys on Discord. I'm just gonna get something to eat quickly. And I'll see you guys in probably about 2 minutes. All right, bye bye.